Greetings, Mavericks and new viewers. Tonight, direct and live from the Maverick News Network World Studios. This is Maverick News with Rick Walker.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Maverick News Channel. So much going on today. The economy may well be crashing. That's what some people are saying. The real economy, and then there's the financial economy. In the financial economy, it appears to be sort of crashing. Certainly, in the world of crypto, we have a crash. That is having an impact on a lot of things because we've had $1 trillion of value wiped out over the past few days. And mainstream media in general, barely paying any attention. If you're in the crypto markets, yeah, you're paying attention because it's affecting you. A lot of people have been liquidating crypto assets. It isn't clear where we're going to end up on all this. Plus, we have the battle of the F-35 versus the Gripen unfolding. We have Russia attacking inside Poland. What impact will that have? What will that result in? Will it trigger a coordinated NATO response? We're waiting to see. We're going to update a little bit for you tonight on the situation with the Universal Ostrich Farm, following up on our extensive broadcast last night regarding the cull of those ostriches. And we have other news too, not the least of which is Donald Trump defending the murder of a journalist. For me, I find that particularly distasteful. And that's an understatement. I will be right back.
Maverick News. Fighting for freedom. Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, defending free speech, Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Okay, we're on a bit of a roller coaster ride. Well, not a little bit of a roller coaster ride, a huge roller coaster ride. And right now, it's like it went off a cliff. Bitcoin price, it was up around $120,000 not long ago. Like we're talking, a couple of weeks. And now where are we at with the price right this moment? Let's check. It is Bitcoin price in US dollars. And I was talking US currency. Now it's recovered a little bit. It was down around 89,000 earlier today. Let's bring this up. It's dramatic. It's exciting. It is the Bitcoin roller coaster. Right now, 91,276 and 23 cents. As you can see from the graph, it's still plunged today. It was at 91.46. Now it's at 91,276. And let's just take a look here over a 5-day period. 91,000, sort of at a peak here. Back, Sunday at 96,000. Go to a 1-month graph at a peak of 114 on October 27th. And down to 91,000 right now, 91,340, 276. And 6 months, you can see that it is at a pretty low point compared to where it was, because it was at 124,310 on October 7th. It was at 123 in August. So it's been a real roller coaster ride, but it goes up and down. 105,000 back in May. And if you look at, a year, it's not a complete disaster. If you look at it over a longer period of time, I mean, it was at a low here back in April of 75,000. Just back in April. So huge swings in pricing. It's very volatile. And that's why some people are making so much money. Up and down like a yo-yo. And it looks like it's on the way down. It's been, it's just been a roller coaster. So much so that some people are just liquidating assets. Including this dude, and I don't know if it's true, but there are reports that Mr. Macho, Mr. I get to behave badly, Mr. Tate, it's all perception management, image, he's liquidated all of his crypto, or so we're told. I kind of doubt he's liquidated all of it. But here, you get to watch this guy work out and do unhealthy things like smoke from a hookah with dramatic music. And then, oh, there he is, shirt off. Yep. Water pipe. We're going to drink some of this stuff while he takes in a lungful of smoke, and then there's big stacks of cash and his super expensive watches that he got from China. Okay, whatever. I think that we're in a lot of trouble right now because people are idolizing people like that. In a lot of ways, he represents the worst side of humanity. Greed makes the world go round, right? Well, if you're in the crypto market, you're in the middle of a huge bear market. Here's Altcoin Daily.
2018, I pointed out when Bitcoin was about 10,000, it was going to drop a zero. I was 70% right, 30% wrong because it went down to 3,000. I'm saying the same thing now. I think it can go back to 10,000.
Bloomberg Intelligence just predicted this about Bitcoin.
And it's classic peak bull market stuff I remember seeing in 1999.
That Bitcoin's price is headed to 10K, while Citibank, $1.7 trillion heavily respected Citibank, is arguing the opposite.
Going forward, the liquidity squeeze for the Bitcoin weakness should actually get much better because we expect...
What's actually next for Bitcoin, and what do I need to know as a crypto investor? Watch today's whole video because it starts understanding that Bitcoin whales are buying the dip below $100,000 Bitcoin. So this is a chart showing the price of Bitcoin in black combined with, in green, the number of entities with a balance of over 1,000 Bitcoin, meaning whales. Bitcoin whales. And what do we notice? We see as soon as the Bitcoin price dipped under $100,000 per coin, the Bitcoin whale buying exploded. Meaning the buyers at these price levels are starting to step in, just like when Bitcoin was above 100K, we see, as Bitcoin went above 100 into the $120,000 price range, the sellers started to step in, the buyers became exhausted, and the sellers stepped up. Now we're seeing the buyers step up in a big, big way. And why this matters is because the smart money, presumably, because they have a lot of money, the whales are stepping up to buy at these levels and taking Bitcoin from the impatient, taking Bitcoin from the minnows. Whales are buying the dip as small holders offload. Wallets holding over 1,000 Bitcoin jumped 2.2% to over 1,384, the highest in 4 months. I believe this is a generational buy the dip opportunity. If Bitcoin dips lower in the short term, I believe it becomes a greater buy the dip opportunity because there's 3 big catalysts that I believe will drive Bitcoin and the broader crypto markets price higher in 2026. Let's listen to why Citibank, heavily respected Citibank, believes the liquidity crunch for Bitcoin is ending. They also believe Bitcoin's going higher. Let's look at that. Then I want to give you my thoughts, and then we'll play the inverse, why Bloomberg believes we're going lower.
Hello traders, in this video.
So he's arguing that it's a buyer's market now because it's dipped so much from like 124 all the way down to 96. So whales, big investors, people with big money, the smart guys, they're moving in and buying up now, which is what you do usually when things are crashing. But you have to figure out where the bottom is, because if you start buying too soon, you end up losing more. What some other economists like Peter Schiff have suggested is that this is likely to continue, this downward trend. And some people are saying Bitcoin price could go all the way to 10,000. And the reason is liquidity. And which means, I think in real terms, what they're trying to tell you, what Schiff has been saying, is that too many people have borrowed money to get into the crypto market. And now you have people who have been leveraged, who are suffering because they've lost so much value so quickly. And now you're going to have people who are going to have trouble paying bills because they have to pay the debt on the Bitcoin, and they've also taken out loans against their Bitcoin and the equity that they have in that in order to go and buy consumer goods like cars. 91,276. So who's right, who's wrong? Only time will tell. But when you have $1 trillion sucked out of the economy in such dramatic fashion, it absolutely has to have an impact on the economy in general. Let's go back to Altcoin Daily.
There are a couple of things going on in Bitcoin that are interesting. First, there was a flash crash in early October. And that, for Bitcoin itself, it was a 14% move down over 2 days. Maybe not that drastic, but some of the altcoins really got sold much, much harder. And after this flash crash, we saw that the flows into the Bitcoin ETFs and so forth really changed. So the flows really never recovered, and so retail was apparently somewhat shell-shocked by that day, and we saw outflows. The other thing that happened is that I think a lot of the institutional investors trade Bitcoin with a bit of a trend-following mindset, and so we broke some of the moving averages that they tend to look at, and that is also reducing the source of demand. But the third point is what you were mentioning, and that is that the liquidity, which we measure by bank reserves on the Fed balance sheet, dropped by a bit more than 500 billion. And that happened because the Treasury increased the Treasury general account at the Fed by selling a lot of T-bills. And there were two reasons for that. One is why this TGA account was so high. One is that that during the government shutdown, the Treasury didn't spend as much, so that account rose mechanically on the back of that. But secondly, they did sell more T-bills than is typical, and so we are thinking going forward, the liquidity squeeze, so that explanation for the Bitcoin weakness should actually get much better, because we expect TGA to at the very least flatten out and probably decline, meaning bank reserves and liquidity should improve between now and the end, partly because of the reopening and partly because the Treasury sold so many T-bills already.
And really what Citibank is saying is that the reason assets were in a liquidity crunch, and Bitcoin is always the most volatile, it's always the most reactive to liquidity, is in large part because the government was shut down. That's the liquidity crunch. Now that the government is reopened, we should see the inverse. That's good for Bitcoin. We also just got a new update on the Clarity Act. Coinbase CEO is in Congress, he's in Washington, and he expects to see the passing of this legislation in December. To me, that's crypto. This is crypto's. This legislation is crypto's 1996 early internet moment, because it was in the year 1996 that the internet passed the Telecommunications Bill of 1996 that regulated the internet in a large part. For the very first time, crypto's finally being regulated. Yes, there's dips, and you could say in 1996, yeah, we're getting this huge piece, the Telecommunications Act of legislation, but is the internet really going to be big in 1997 and 1999? Yeah, and even bigger in 2005, in 2015, and today. That's finally happening with crypto. Brian Armstrong believes by December. Here's the update.
Hey everyone, Brian Armstrong, Coinbase CEO here. I'm in the halls of Congress, back again, pushing for market structure legislation. We've seen a lot of progress since I was last here. We've now seen draft text shared by the Senate Ad Committee. Senate Banking is also working nights and weekends to get the next iteration of their text out. So we've got a good chance, I think, of a markup for this bill in December, hopefully get it to the president's desk shortly thereafter. This would be a big milestone to get crypto unlocked with clear rules in the US, which would benefit all companies.
This is why you subscribe to Altcoin Daily for perspective. It's completely free. It costs you nothing.
So, yeah, I don't know. Market forces, supply, demand, debt, those are the driving factors here, and the government shutdown certainly affecting liquidity because some people weren't getting paychecks. And when you have that many people not getting paychecks, government employees make up a big portion of the economy, even in the United States, which is supposed to be a free market capitalistic society. No, they have huge public sector employment. A lot of people work for the government, and when they've had the government shut down, it sucks even more money out of the economy, which really puts the brakes on economic growth activity and definitely has a downward effect on markets, including crypto markets. Stock market's still holding its own, but crypto very volatile, up and down, like huge swings. He's talking about a dip. This is a massive swing from 124 to 90. What did I say? Is that right now? 91.2. Almost 92,000. That's a huge swing. And there's a psychological line there too, the 100K. And then Peter Schiff, who I like, I like his videos, the things he talks about, because he's very much a free market guy, very much a capitalist, all about freedom. And here he is. When Bitcoin breaks 88K, he says in this post, you're going to see some serious shit. Bitcoin's down nearly 30% from its high in dollars and 42% from its high priced in gold. How many people popping champagne corks at Bitcoin's 100K parties a year ago expected 2025 to be this bad? 2026 could be far worse. The keyword's always key. It could, might, maybe. We don't know what's going to happen. I'll tell you this. I used to go to a meeting once a month it was like a crypto club because I wanted to learn. This was quite a few years ago now. when I lived in London. And I used to go about once a month and hang out with these guys who I thought were like way smarter than me. And largely they were much smarter than me. A few of them made a lot of money with Bitcoin, especially in the earlier days. They got in early and then rode the roller coaster up, way up to the top of the mountain. And as much as I would sit in those meetings and listen to all their strategies about trading and buying and when to buy, when to sell, how to buy, how to sell, how it works, what a Bitcoin wallet is, all of the stuff you need to know. You know, the one thing I took away from all the meetings that I attended to learn about Bitcoin, the one thing, I only really learned one thing that was really, truly important. And that is that they had no idea what they were doing. And that was the truth. They admitted I mean, they just admit, I mean, like, it's not like it was like a confession, but they just acknowledged that at the end of the day, they could have made this, the ones who made a lot of money, they would have made about the same amount of money if all they had done is just purchased Bitcoin and then just held on to it instead of buying and selling and buying and selling. Because every time you buy or sell, there are fees through the crypto exchanges, even though you're not supposed to. It's supposed to be sort of a decentralized trading platform where you avoid fees and so on. But the bottom line is they were just, it's all guesswork. You can watch all these pundits, but at the end of the day, nobody really knows what's going up or down. You can gauge a little bit. And right now, that's why I'm talking about this tonight. The one thing that really drives markets is probably more than anything else is emotion. And you get overreaction. And so you do get big swings, especially in crypto markets. You get it too with the stock market. And that's why they have regulations. That's why they halt trading when markets start to go off the rails. When you start to get massive sell-offs, they halt trading so that everybody can calm down a little bit. And you just take a little bit of a pause and let things stabilize to prevent a disaster, another stock market crash that can result in another deep depression. So you kind of get that too with these crypto situations right now. I don't know where it's going, but I'll tell you this, the reason I'm talking about it tonight is because it has been a dramatic swing. I'm seeing a lot of headlines about this. We've been seeing Donald Trump lie his mother freaking ass off about the numbers, especially jobs numbers and investment numbers, and and lying about the way the tariffs are impacting the economy. It's all positive. No, it's not. Inflation is up. You have a lot of factors, plus the government shutdown. And this time with this swing, I can't predict where it's going. Don't take financial advice from me. Seek out the advice of a professional. But for me, this feels a lot different. It has felt different for the past week. And as we've seen this continual price push downward, and now we're at like $1 trillion sucked out of the economy through crypto, which is not really backed up with anything. It's just air. It's just belief. It's confidence. It's a belief that this stuff has some sort of value. And the real value, or the only reason that Bitcoin or any of these cryptocurrencies, the only reason they have value is because people believe they have value. They're not backed up by gold. They're not really backed up by anything other than people's belief in the crypto system, and that these bits and bytes, these little pieces of digitized energy that record whatever you have invested in it, that it's there. And ultimately, that's always what backs anything up. But even with gold, you at least have something physical you can hold on to, and it has a practical use beyond that. You can use gold for quite a number of things, whether electronics or even just to make jewelry out of it. It has some sort of value, like real world value. Not so with Bitcoin. It's a different animal in that way. And with that much money coming out of the economy, it's got to have an impact. Now, if it bounces back quickly enough, then maybe we'll get out of this little dilemma here. But buckle up, because cryptocurrency worldwide tonight is in a state of free fall, dragging ripples through stocks, the broader economy, and yes, as I said, even the job market. So, Bitcoin is sort of the digital gold standard, but it plunged 10% this week alone. 10% in 1 week. And Ethereum, that's like another, if you're not familiar with crypto, that's another major cryptocurrency. It shed over 11%. Nowhere near the valuations in Bitcoin with Ethereum. And Ethereum is priced at about $3,000. But it's not a blip. It's a full-blown bear market for sure. And it's just a question of how low it's going to go before it starts to claw its way back up. 10,000, that's what we've heard is a possibility. But then anything is possible. It's just that you need to be aware, and the alerts are going out. Even the exchanges like Coinbase, they send out alerts through email messages to people who use their platforms to let them know that things are volatile, that a lot of value has been lost in these portfolios. So if you zoom out to the US economy, this is not isolated. Consumer confidence is fraying, and the crypto wipeout exposes vulnerabilities in a system that is hooked on speculative bets. Marketplace.org tonight noting that governments and banks now all in on digital assets as well, because you've got, like, Donald Trump is now committed to crypto as well. He wants to dominate the crypto market over China. But a crash like this could trigger lending freezes or eroded trust in fintech, slowing growth in an already cooling economy. And jobs, well, unemployment rate sits at 4.3% as of August. That's the highest in nearly 4 years, with economists eyeing steady at that level for September's delayed report. So I don't know. It's just a toxic mix of too much debt buying cryptocurrency and not really knowing whether it's going up or down, and a lot of value coming out of the market all at once, while you're getting these sort of false numbers being pushed out by the White House with regard to the economy. Now, with regard to the economy, today we saw Canada meeting with representatives from Sweden. Here, take a look at this. And this is about more than just the fighter jet contract, which is front and center in the discussion tonight. Here we go. Take a look. Here's the social media diplomacy. Ebba Busch from Sweden. In difficult and turbulent times, one must choose one's friends wisely. Sweden and Canada are choosing each other as friends, allies, and partners. I am happy and honored to be part of the state visit with the King and Queen to Canada, King and Queen of Sweden. The Swedish business is also broadly represented with a business delegation consisting of both industrial giants and startups. Yesterday, a comprehensive agreement on strategic partnership between our countries was signed. It enables even more cooperation in, among other things, security, energy, raw materials, innovation, research, competitiveness, and, of course, trade. And, there's Mark Carney with Ebba Busch. And they're exchanging hockey jerseys. Her saying, our two countries share a particularly wonderful common interest in hockey, a fine moment in Prime Minister Carney's office. I'm bringing a really nice hockey jersey home to Sweden. A Team Canada jersey, and we have a Swedish jersey. And there they are, hanging out, having their meeting. And there was this as well. which is important. We had Melanie Joly, foreign minister, at this conference with Ebba Busch. Here it is here. Here she is with Sweden's deputy prime minister. First Joly and then Ebba Busch commenting on what's going on. All eyes on this F-35 contract, which could be undermined because Donald Trump has betrayed the trust that is of such huge value when it comes to doing anything in terms of the economy. He's betrayed Canada's trust. He's betrayed the trust of all U.S. allies, really. And as a result, Canada could end up buying the Gripen instead. But as I said, this is about more than just that single fighter jet policy. Canada looking to expand trade with other countries, and that's what they were talking about today.
Free trade. We can do so obviously with Sweden, and you know we have a powerhouse here with us. That's you, Ebba. With the European Union, Canada is the only G7 country having so many free trade agreements. Well, the only the only country of the G7 having free trade agreements with every other G7 countries. So I think that we can just do things and not be scared of doing things. We can do business, be closer, create new networks, and this will have a huge impact in the next decades. But there's a rupture that happened over the past few months. And we're going ahead, and we're basically going to do things differently. And we will build our country strong, and we will do so with friends, and great relationships that are trustworthy, like Sweden.
And one step is that it's actually the signing of the strategic platform of collaboration ground that was signed yesterday by the prime ministers. And let me ask you, Ebba, how can we break that into kind of concrete actions? How do we go from the fancy words in the writing into what we actually do together?
Well, you could help us out in this room because it's not policymakers that create job opportunities and economic growth. We can set bad or good conditions for it, but ultimately it's you as business leaders, you're the ones that are the true job creators. And what we're trying to do here is pave way basically for you guys and to create better business opportunities for you already starting this week. And I think a few of you in the room have met quite a lot of politicians. And and you can hear now, we're good at talking. And sometimes we sign papers that bear a huge symbolic value. The strategic partnership with Canada is such a paper, but not only. This can truly be translated into very concrete steps and actions. I think one of the guarantees for this is both the leadership of Prime Minister Carney himself, but not least you, Melanie. And Melanie has already established her in a Swedish context as a doer. And I would, just to give you a political read on the partnership, it is extremely comprehensive. It is very, very well worked through in the way that it also then guarantees concrete outcome from it. In the energy sector, when it comes to forestry, when it comes to security and defense. And speaking to your point of hope, I have a lot of existential conversations now with my two children back at home, my 8-year-old and not least my 10-year-old. And he was actually asking me 2 years ago, when things were truly turbulent in many areas at the same time, he asks me, Mommy, how do we know that things will get better? How do we know if life will be okay, was his exact question, translated into English. And that also sparked, for me as a mother, but also as a policymaker, fear can drive a lot of change, but too much fear will only paralyze everything. And then there will be no driver for change whatsoever. But I think that Canada and Sweden are also two nations that shows this week, for example, with the COP going on in Brazil, it is possible to both cut emissions and drive economic growth up at the same time, if you do it right, if you also weigh in competitiveness and value for your own citizens. That is possible. But then that's a realistic hope. And that's the type of hope that I think that the collaboration between Canada and Sweden can also pave way for.
Now, I had a conversation with a friend today, just on the phone, and she's quite right about uncertainty paralyzing things. Just observations between the two of us as friends chatting. And I said, I just don't know how young people today in Canada can even look forward to any kind of a really bright financial future when they probably can't afford to buy a house because it's just so darn expensive. You know, $800,000, $1 million just to get into the housing market in many cases, depending on what city you're in. And why is the economy in such distress right now? It's because of uncertainty, largely. It's because of the government shutdown. It's all the turmoil. It's the roller coaster that we're seeing happening in the crypto market right now. People aren't sure what's going on. Should I buy? Should I sell? And if you're a business owner with all the tariffs on again, off again, at 50% off the tariffs, 80% more, it depends on the mood of the president. Businesses don't know how to plan. And while they're entering into these letters of intent, which Donald Trump is calling deals or new trade deals, most of them are really frameworks for deals. And he's saying that he's bringing in trillions of dollars in new investment. And I'm not sure that any of that will ever really come to pass, or if how much of it, some of it likely will, but how much of it, hard to say, because it's all very shaky, uncertain. We don't even know if Trump's tariffs if he'll be able to continue to apply these tariffs. The Supreme Court in the United States is going to be ruling on that. And if you don't know from one day to the next what kind of tariffs your industry needs to deal with your business, how do you plan to invest in anything? You're going to open a new plant? Yeah, right now, it looks like maybe you have to build a plant in the United States and leave whatever country you're manufacturing in order to continue to do business with the United States, a large market. Oh, I guess we better shut this one down and go open a new plant in the southern U.S. someplace. But in reality, you don't know. It could be 3-4 weeks from now. All that could change. 6 months from now, 2.5, 3 years from now, that could change. When Donald Trump leaves office, that could change. Maybe it will, likely will. I don't think it's going to hold. It's resulting in far too much volatility. Just way too much. And as a result, what's the issue today during question period in the House of Commons in Kazakhstan? The economy, of course, and Melanie Joly doing double duty. First at the conference with the deputy PM from Sweden, and then answering the first question off the hop from Pierre Poilievre, Conservative Party of Canada leader.
Oral questions, questions orales, the Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Canadians are paying the price for this Prime Minister. Grocery and housing costs have ballooned, but this Prime Minister is making things even worse with his budget, which doubled Justin Trudeau's deficit. This is the highest deficit in Canadian history outside of the COVID pandemic. The deficit is $16 billion higher than what he promised during the election. And for what? To finance a bureaucracy that grew by 80% since the Liberals took office 10 years ago. Now, the government House leader says that this will have minimal impact on democracy. Why do Canadians have to pay for all this? The Honourable Minister of Industry. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Clearly, the Leader of the Opposition did not read the budget. Had he read the budget, he would see that currently we are bringing down operating costs, government operating costs. If he hasn't read the budget, that would explain why he voted against it. Or maybe he's just operating in bad faith. He's against jobs we're trying to create from coast to coast to coast. We're trying to invest in defense. He's against it. He's against us investing more in health. He's against investments all throughout the country in mining projects, electricity projects, energy projects. So basically, what it comes down to is that he's against growth, Mr. Speaker. The Prime Minister is once again playing his games. He is going on yet another trip. We want some results for his 20 international trips. He has covered 150,000 kilometers in his travels. That's the equivalent of circling the globe 4 times. What have all these meetings led to? American tariffs have increased. Indian tariffs have increased on our peas. China has increased tariffs on our farmers and fish harvesters. It would be better for our economy if the Prime Minister were to hide under a rock rather than to continue his meetings. Can the Minister tell us one tariff the Prime Minister has managed to have reduced? Mr. Speaker, the only person hiding under a rock right now is the Leader of the Opposition when he has to face his caucus. So that's one thing. Next, the Leader of the Opposition, what he wants is for the Canadian economy to remain dependent on the American economy. I think that's his strategy. He might not be saying that out loud to Canadians, but here on this side of the House, our strategy is to diversify our markets. We are trying to create jobs. So that's why the Prime Minister is traveling to countries like Europe, Asia, the UAE, the Gulf states, and it's all leading to good news.
Well, this banter continues back and forth, and you know who is not hiding under a rock is the U.S. ambassador to Canada, Peter Hoekstra, Mr. Temper Tantrum. Yeah, you know, he was throwing a temper tantrum a couple of weeks ago over with Doug Ford and that ad that Ontario ran, and I think he was carrying water for Donald Trump, really. Sort of, I think it was a bit of a performance theater. Made headlines, but here's Pete Hoekstra at the manufacturing conference as well.
So, they did interrupt me, so that's okay. Look, you know, you have that deep public policy experience and from your time in Congress and as a rep for Michigan, which is a manufacturing state. I don't need to remind anybody here. But in your view, the big, beautiful bill, how is this legislation enabling manufacturing in the U.S.? It's really important for us as Canadians watching from the other side.
Yeah, I think that's a little narrow because, you know, obviously the big, beautiful bill is a tax bill. There's all kinds of incentives in there in terms of accelerated depreciation, write-offs, and on investments and those kinds of things. But I think to get a better understanding of exactly what's happening in the U.S., it's the big, beautiful bill. It's a tax bill. It's regulatory reform. For those of you that might be involved in energy and gas, Doug Burgum is leading an effort for energy dominance. And you know, they have significantly reduced the time for permitting. For some things that used to take years, they're down to weeks. Wow. Okay, so that's a cost savings, that's a time savings. You know, it is about bringing in the dollars for investment. If you want to grow, you need the dollars for investment. Yesterday, you know, the president just happened to pick up $1 trillion, you know, from the Saudis. Then it's about the customers, you know, making sure that we've got customers who buy the stuff that we make. You know, the Saudis yesterday bought about $5 billion worth of F-35s. You know, so obviously we appreciate that business. There might be some of you here who are saying yes, because when, you know, this international plane, an F-35, every time someone decides to buy them, buy one, that's a significant amount of money to a lot of Canadian companies. And then, you know, the tariff thing, but all of that is put in a package to restore America's economy and get us, you know, to, as the president will describe, one of the hottest, if not the hottest economy in the world. That's the objective, doing all of those things.
Well, that's a good lead. I mean, you.
Oh, yes and no. That's what he talked about right there. Those points he touched on, all of those things in one way or another affecting or making even headlines tonight with regard to other stories. The F-35 right off the bat, he's talking about the impact that that's having on Canada. He's talking about Saudi Arabia buying F-35s, more F-35s, the impact that's going to have on the U.S. economy. He says it's going to have an impact on the Canadian economy. There's some truth to that because some Canadian companies do have linkages to F-35 production. I think they make the tail section out in, I think is Alberta. Don't quote me. But not as much of an impact as, say, bringing the F-30, the Gripen to Canada, where we're being promised like 10,000 new jobs directly as a result of the Gripen production if it were to come to Canada. Now, if you're like a pro-America guy working for a newspaper that has US dollars wrapped up in it, like Brian Lilly, you might be inclined to promote F-35 over the Gripen. And that is indeed what he is doing here today, just posting this tonight. Toronto Sun columnist.
Canada and the F-35. We just can't seem to get it together on this file, can we? Hi, I'm Brian Lilly, political columnist for the Toronto Sun. We are in the middle of a debate in this country about which fighter jet to buy. We shouldn't be in this debate. We joined the F-35 program in the 1990s under a prime minister named Jean Chrétien. There's plenty of people who could be fighter pilots today who were not alive when Jean Chrétien was the prime minister of this country, and yet we're still debating. We joined the Joint Strike Fighter program in the 90s. By the early 2000s, we were supposed to be buying the F-35. The Harper government, under pressure from the opposition, called for a review. Then they eventually said we'd buy it. Then there was the election in 2015. Justin Trudeau said we'd never buy the F-35, reviewed all the other options, said, okay, the F-35 is the only plane to buy. Now enter Mark Carney, the trade war with the United States. Suddenly, we're reviewing it again. And now we've got the King and Queen of Sweden doing a house call to Canada to trying to get us to buy a fighter jet that was first in service before I finished high school in 1988. Joining me now to talk about this is Billy Flynn. He is a retired Air Force veteran. He is a fighter jet pilot in his career. He doesn't fly anymore, but he's one of the few Canadians in the world who have flown an F-35, and fifth-generation stealth fighter jet. Billy, thanks for joining me today. You were one of the first to fly the CF-18 that's still rattling around in the skies. How long ago was that?
Brian, thanks for having me today. Oh, you know, I first flew it 42 years ago. I was the first baby pilot picked to fly the CF-18. And, you know, who would have imagined that Canadians would still be flying the same jet more than 4 decades later, slated to go to almost 50 years of service. It's inconceivable that we would be defending Canada's north, our sovereignty, with an airplane that old.
So, I mean, you joined the Air Force in the early 80s. Can you imagine, would you have joined if in the early 1980s, the Air Force said to you, yeah, we'd love for you to be a pilot for us. Here's this plane that we put into service at the beginning of the Second World War. And that's essentially what we're asking them to do. The time frames are the same.
Yeah, kind of.
Well, things are really going to change now with a fifth-generation fighter coming. And the recruitment problem in the RCAF will go away with the excitement of an F-35 coming and the promise of a next-generation capability that eclipses anything that those young men and women would have imagined in service from the CF-18 days. It's a revolutionary wave of capability coming.
And I understand that, but Billy, I've talked to military brass, retired military brass, who say when Justin Trudeau canceled the F-13 project in 2015,
F-35,
and all of the ups and downs, after that 2015 cancellation, we had a whole bunch of pilots leave. We have not been able to recruit properly. And the recruitment problem is still there because we are dithering. I mean, this really does hurt the Canadian Armed Forces long term, not being able to settle on the plane that we should have ordered back in, 10, 15 years ago, that we should have been flying already. So talk to me about that. You say this will, if we finally do it, and that's up in the air, it will boost recruitment, but we've had a recruitment problem since the cancellation. Why is that? Explain that to the viewers who don't get it. Well, you're flying a fighter jet anyways. What's the difference? Explain it to us.
Well, look, if you want the most talented, the most capable men and women to come join the RCF to be fighter pilots, you better offer them the most capable systems out there. Airplanes that are survivable and, oh, by the way, lethal when, not if, they are sent into harm's way. And an old airplane like a CF-18 is not survivable in modern day combat. And so why would men and women sign up to join an airplane where they know that if they're sent into harm's way, their very lives are put at risk? That has been a huge issue motivating men and women to join the armed forces, because the system, the capabilities are so old now, and they're irrelevant.
That is the bottom line. It's like, is the jet any good? Is the technology up to date? Because you have stealth technology. It isn't just about speed. It's about the ability to detect other aircraft and from how far away, 150 miles or 50 miles out. And the Gripen doesn't have nearly as much technological capability as the Gripen. So as the F-35. So the F-35, a more advanced fighter for sure, but the Gripen, it's not really fair for Brian Lilly to say that it's a fighter jet from the 1990s. It isn't, or whatever year he suggested. It's been updated. It is very current, and it's much less expensive, and you can get more of them. There are a lot of arguments both ways, and one of the most important arguments is the jobs and the sovereignty that comes with it, because Donald Trump stood up a week ago and actually just said the quiet part out loud. If you buy F-35, any cutting edge technology from the United States, they hold back 20% in terms of technology to make sure that nobody can compete with the United States. So if you buy an F-35, it's only going to be 80% as good as the same plane being flown by U.S. pilots, because they're holding back 20% of the technology. In other words, they're probably putting kill switches on these things, which means that if you don't do exactly what the United States tells you to do, they're going to shut down those planes because they ultimately have some sort of control over them. Now, I can't say that there's an actual kill switch, but you're getting the idea. They control what you're doing. And if they don't like you, if they can't shut you down, they'll blow you out of the water or the sky, whatever the case may be, depending whether you're talking about, boats off Venezuela or a fighter jet in the sky. That's not really fair. We shouldn't be portraying the United States as an adversary in that way, but you're getting the point. And this is why other countries around the world are reviewing their F-35 contracts, but not so much Saudi Arabia. Just yesterday, as we just heard in that report from Brian Lilly, that editorial interview, Saudi Arabia making another commitment to buying more fighter jets from the United States. And oh, yes, they absolutely appreciate the money. They absolutely appreciate in a really major way the business. And that's why I think we saw Donald Trump, in part, this is why we saw Donald Trump bend the knee to the Prince of Saudi Arabia. How so? Well, we saw him take this question from an ABC reporter about the murder of Jamal Khashoggi back in, what year was that? It was 2018. Hard to believe it was that long ago. But big story at the time, if you don't remember. Jamal Khashoggi who came from a well-connected Saudi family. His uncle was the billionaire arms dealer Adnan Khashoggi, and he was also a first cousin to Dodi Fayed, who died with Princess Diana. And early in his career, he was close to the Saudi royal family, served as an advisor and media aide to the former Saudi intelligence chief and ambassador, Prince Turki Al Faisal. Faisal. And he worked as editor-in-chief of Al Watan newspaper, became a prominent commentator on Arab media, Al Jazeera, BBC Arabic, etc. By 2017, as Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman consolidated power, Khashoggi went into self-imposed exile in the United States. He was afraid of being arrested, and then he ended up writing regular columns for the Washington Post, where he became very critical of Saudi policies, including the crackdown on dissent, the war in Yemen, the blockade in Qatar. He advocated for reform, free speech, which some of you out there seem to be committed to, others pretending, and a constitutional monarchy in Saudi Arabia. He was ultimately assassinated. A 15-man Saudi hit squad, including members of MBS's personal security detail, forensic experts, and intelligence officers, flew to Istanbul on government jets. And then, according to intelligence findings, Khashoggi was strangled after entering the consul general's office, then was dismembered with a bone saw. His body has never been found, but we know that he was chopped up into pieces. It was a pre-planned murder. Audio recordings captured by Turkish intelligence reportedly include the team discussing how to cut up the body before Khashoggi even arrived. Who was apparently behind it all? Well, a 2021 U.S. intelligence report declassified under President Biden concluded with high confidence that Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman approved the operation to capture and or kill Khashoggi. 8 people were ultimately convicted in a closed Saudi trial back in 2019, 2020, but it was criticized by most as a sham. 5 initially sentenced to death had their sentences commuted to 20 years. All the fingers pointed at the prince. Well, where was the prince yesterday? In the Oval Office, welcomed with open arms by Donald Trump, questioned about this whole Khashoggi dirty business by this reporter from ABC. And look at the way that Donald Trump responded. Here it is.
There's a lot of real opportunities that fit to our need in Saudi Arabia and fit to our investment strategy.
Here comes the question.
Mr. President, is it appropriate, Mr. President, for your family to be doing business in Saudi Arabia while you're president? Is that a conflict of interest? And Your Royal Highness, the U.S. intelligence concluded that you orchestrated the brutal murder of a journalist. 9/11 families are furious that you are here in the Oval Office.
Who are you with?
Why should Americans trust you?
Who are you with?
And the same to you, Mr. President.
Now, who are you with?
I'm with ABC News, sir.
You with who?
ABC News, sir.
Fake news. ABC fake news. One of the worst in the business. But I'll answer your question.
Thank you.
I have nothing to do with the family business. I have left, and when I've devoted 100% of my energy. What my family does is fine. They do business all over. They've done very little with Saudi Arabia, actually. I'm sure they could do a lot. And anything they've done has been very good. That's what we've done. We've built a tremendous business for a long time. I've been very successful. I decided to leave that success behind and make America very successful. And I've made America more successful by far than it ever was, and that it ever could have been, no matter who was president. There would be nobody bringing in $21 trillion, that I can tell you right now. As far as this gentleman is concerned, he's done a phenomenal job. You're mentioning somebody that was extremely controversial.
He's done a phenomenal job. And now Trump is referring to the journalist, Khashoggi, and he's saying, you're referring to someone who is extremely controversial? Listen to what he says about the journalist.
A lot of people didn't like that gentleman that you're talking about. Whether you like him or didn't like him, things happen, but he knew nothing about it.
Things happen? Well, what are you going to do? Things happen. 1 minute you got a reporter, the next minute he's chopped into little bits and you can't find his body. Oh, well, you know, it's, is anybody above the law? Yeah, some people clearly are. That's the distasteful thing about all of this. This is the horrific thing about all this. If you had somebody in your neighborhood who, even if they didn't do it themselves, say they just paid somebody to murder someone and then chop their body into little bits and dispose of it so that it could never be found, what would you do with someone like that? You put them away for life, never to get out again. They would be classified as some psychotic, totally insane killer who you wouldn't ever want walking the streets. But this guy, welcomed into the White House with open arms because the United States has these business relationships, this military industrial complex, defense relationship with Saudi Arabia, a long-standing agreement on the way oil is purchased and the way it's paid for in US dollars in order to prop up the American dollar. Hence, we get the US petrodollar, as people often refer to it. So I guess if you have enough money, you really can get away with murder. And Trump's saying himself, he could stand out in the middle of the street and shoot someone and get away with it, and it wouldn't even affect the amount of support that he gets from people. That's what he said quite a long time ago, but it still hangs in my mind. Yeah, some people clearly are above the law.
And we can leave it at that. You don't have to embarrass our guest by asking a question like that.
You wouldn't want to ask him anything too embarrassing.
Yes, Mr. President, if you allow me to answer. I feel painful about, the families of 9/11 in America, but, we have to focus on reality. Reality based on CIA documents and based on a lot of documents that Osama bin Laden used Saudi people at that event for one main purpose, is to destroy this relation, to destroy the American-Saudi relation. That's the purpose of 9/11. So whoever buying that means they are helping Osama bin Laden's purpose of destroying this relation. He knows that strong relation between America and Saudi Arabia is bad for extremism, it's bad for terrorism. And we have to approve him wrong and to build our relation, continue developing our relation. It's critical in the safety of the world, it's critical against extremism and terrorism. About the journalists, it's really painful to hear, anyone that been losing his life for no real purpose or nothing illegal way, and it's been painful for us in Saudi Arabia. We've did all the right steps of investigation, etc. in Saudi Arabia, and we've improved our system to be sure that nothing happened like that, and it's painful and it's a huge mistake, and we are doing our best that this doesn't happen again.
Well, just a mistake, I guess. Just sorry about that. We won't let that happen again. So you have this guy not going to let that kind of horrific murder where someone's body gets chopped up into pieces because he's a journalist and was saying things the government didn't care for, sitting next to the guy who right now has been greenlighting the attacks on boats by the U.S. Navy so that they can just blow these boats out of the water because of suspected drug smuggling. I still have not seen a single name released by the government or any actual evidence to back up the claims that these are narco-terror boats. I'm not saying they aren't, but I'd sure like to see a better process in place. Just things seem out of whack. This is not a U.S. government that reflects what the United States has really been known for. You talk about the American dream and what the United States, that's really about not just like the white picket fence and having, a single family home in a nice little suburban neighborhood and 1 kids or 1.8 or whatever it is. It's not about that. It's not just about that. It's not about Americana. It's about the United States doing the right things. This is the American dream. This is what the rest of the world has always looked to the United States for, certainly since after World War II. The world looked to the United States for leadership and even sometimes protection against tyrannical governments, against dictators, knowing that there was this shining city on a hill, a metaphor for the United States, this beacon of hope for the entire world, knowing that if this place in the world was oppressed, maybe, just maybe, the United States would come to the defense, to the aid of the smaller, the weaker. Because and knowing that the United States stood for the rule of law, stood for just doing the right thing. Democracy. Standing up for the little guy. That's the way I always looked at the United States. Didn't always get it right. Sometimes I got it way wrong. Depends on who they had in the White House at the time and what was going on geopolitically and what compromises had to be made. You know, what deal with the devil had to be made over here in order to get a positive outcome on this issue over there. So it's always about a trade-off, right? Sometimes better to do a deal with the devil you know than the deal with the devil you don't. Those kinds of issues. But overall, the United States was supposed to be, and I always viewed it as a force for good. But what's Trump doing right now? He's in the Oval Office defending a guy that we clearly know from real evidence was directly involved in the murder of a journalist. Oh, and then people sit there. I mean, we are so hard done by, aren't we, here in Kazakhstan? And even in the United States, are we really that hard done by our governments? I don't think so. I think we're still very, very fortunate here because we do have the rule of law, at least domestically within our own borders. And I think even more so in Canada than in the United States right now. You can argue back and forth about that all you want. But even out of that ostrich farm, and I hate to bring it up, but it's inevitable. I can't help it. What's the worst thing that Canada has ever been accused of? Killing some birds. That's a whole lot different than chopping a human being up into little pieces. Oh, and then the farm owner, or the daughter of the farm owner, the farm spokesperson, Katie Pisitny, facing charges and then came out a couple of days ago. Oh, our government's so tyrannical. She said that she was charged for feeding their own birds. No, she was charged because she failed to comply with a enforceable seizure of property under the Cull Act, or the Cull policy and legislation, because she wouldn't leave the pen. She was basically involved in a standoff with authorities, and she was inside the ostrich pen. But then ultimately, what ended up happening a couple of days ago, the government dropped the charges. Oh, they're so tyrannical. I mean, I'm not saying that it's a bad thing, you know, when protesters get arrested or whatever, but sometimes they're doing it on purpose because it gets them headlines, it gets them attention, just like the attention I'm giving that issue and Katie Pisitny right now. But she didn't go to like prison for 10 years, at least not yet. Our government isn't nearly as tyrannical as a dictator that chops political opponents into little pieces, puts them in garbage bags or whatever, and then hauls them off to who knows where. So thank our lucky stars for that. The cruel or the unfortunate or the uncomfortable reality of it all is that our leaders have to deal with people like that. Donald Trump has to deal with people like that, but I think that he has lost his way because I think he's been dealing with people like that far too long. Not just internationally, but even back at home in the United States for too long, dealing with, you know, mob bosses and, you know, probably even labor leaders that are corrupt and making deals and just even witnessing all the kinds of crime that you have to deal with when you're a developer. Cement companies, if they're, I don't know, putting bodies in cement columns someplace like where's Jimmy Hoffa? If they're not busy doing that, they're doing some sort of a deal to skim money off the top of some fund or something. This is the kind of corruption that really does go on all the time in that kind of world when you're dealing with people at that level. Because the higher you climb, the more people are more immune from laws. So when he's dealing in that kind of thing all the time, then you end up with exactly this kind of situation where the president invites this guy in, and then when the guy's asked a really tough question, a legitimate question from a journalist, an ABC journalist, she gets that kind of pushback. You're a terrible person. You're an awful reporter. I saw Jimmy Kimmel this morning, delayed clip, because this is stuff that actually we didn't get to yesterday because we were dealing with the Ostrich story. But I watched Jimmy Kimmel, and there's a guy who almost lost his gig. Not that he couldn't afford to. He's made a lot of money as a celebrity or personality, media type. But there he was through his comedy routine yesterday, actually practicing a form of journalism, which is what late night comedy shows have largely become in many respects. There's an element of journalism to it because Jimmy Kimmel came through his comedy routine on ABC, came to the defense of that ABC journalist, who later in that same media conference in the Oval Office held Donald Trump's feet to the fire again. I believe it's right here. I think this is it. Yeah, here we go. Because that is one fearless reporter, I'll tell you that. I have to hand it to her, because she now turns around, and after being browbeaten over this question, the question about the murder of Khashoggi, she turns around and asks him about the Epstein files. Watch what he does.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Crown Prince has been instrumental in helping lifting the sanctions on Syria.
Oh, sorry, we're not there yet.
Will there be any joint investment between the U.S. and Syria? And will you visit Damascus?
Are you from Syria?
No, but...
Where are you from?
I'm from Palestine.
Oh, making a lot of progress, huh?
Let me bring it down. Let me find you the clip. I'll tell you, let me take a little break. I lost my spot in my cues. I'll return.
Maverick News. The world is watching. Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, Maverick News. Defending free speech, Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
See, it's not that Trump minds the questions so much. It's just that you have to have the right attitude.
Is that pretty good?
Mr. President, why wait for Congress to release the Epstein files? Why not just do it now?
You know, it's not the question that I mind, it's your attitude. I think you are a terrible reporter. It's the way you ask these questions. You start off with a man who's highly respected, asking him a horrible, insubordinate, and just a terrible question. And you could even ask that same exact question nicely. You're all psyched up. Somebody psychs you over at ABC. You're going to psych it. You're a terrible person and a terrible reporter. As far as the Epstein files is, I have nothing to do with Jeffrey Epstein. I threw him out of my club many years ago because I thought he was a sick pervert. And I guess I turned out to be right. But you know who does have? Bill Clinton, Larry Summers, who ran Harvard, was with him every single night, every single weekend. They lived together. They went to his island many times. I never did. Andrew Weissman, I hear. All these guys were friends of his. You don't even talk about those people. You just keep going on the Epstein files. And what the Epstein is a Democrat hoax to try and get me not to be able to talk about the $21 trillion that I talked about today. It's a hoax. Now, I just got a little report, and I put it in my pocket, of all the money that he's given to Democrats. He gave me none, zero, no money to me, but he gave money to Democrats. And people are wise to your hoax, and ABC's, your company, your crappy company, is one of the perpetrators. And I'll tell you something.
So why not just sign it now?
I think the license should be taken away from ABC because your news is so fake and it's so wrong. And we have a great commissioner, the chairman, who should look at that, because I think when you come in and when you're 97% negative to Trump and then Trump wins the election in a landslide, that means obviously your news is not credible and you're not credible as a reporter. So I've answered your question. You should go and look at the Democrats who received money from Epstein, who spent their time. Larry Summers was with him all the time. That creep of the fund guy was with him all.
protect the victims. and also Donald Trump. Coincidence? Just dumb luck. Right? Another sealed file. That crocodile smile. We did our best, says the DOJ, while the truth just fades away. Another news spin. No one will win except the rich guys with gold ID cards and closets full of secrets behind steel bars. Just a little glitch. A billionaire's privilege. That's the sound of the case. Closed.
Over at NBC, they interviewed a former United Nations investigator who wrote the authoritative report on the murder of journalist Jamal Khashoggi. And they told NBC News today that she was shocked and angry at President Trump's dismissal of intelligence, saying that the Crown Prince approved the killing. Her name, Agnes Callamard, the Secretary General of the watchdog Amnesty International, also says there is no doubt whatsoever that the Crown Prince ordered Khashoggi's grisly bone-sawing killing inside the Saudi consulate in Istanbul, in 2018. American intelligence said that the Crown Prince personally approved the operation to kill or kidnap the Washington Post columnist. Something the de facto Saudi leader has denied, despite apologizing for the murder by his officials. We have this clip from Khashoggi's wife. Also via NBC.
His justification for the crime upset me in sense nothing to justify just a horrible crime, kidnapping, torture and killing and dismantle a body because he's controversial or he's unliked by someone. It doesn't give a reason to any criminal to take someone innocent person's life away. I felt very bad because he described someone else, not Jamal. And I wish one day I meet with President Trump and I introduce real Jamal to him. And I share with him what is real Jamal, how he's been transparent, brave, great man. Justice is very hard to get it. It's very long battle. And as a woman standing alone, it's very hard. This is what looked to me, but it will not stop me to persist until I get justice for myself because I'm the second victim, basically. They killed Jamal and they killed me in the same day they killed Jamal.
I'll be right back.
Brightleaf Innovations is excited to offer our newest investment opportunity. The Turn Easy Bed Storage Solution.
Turns with a touch. Spins all the way around. Every little thing you need is easy to be found. No more clutter, no more mess on the floor. Just spin it, reach it, you don't search anymore. Turn Easy Bed, spin your world around. Storage made simple, the best you found. Shelves your way, keep the mess away. Charge it, store it, night or day. Custom shelves for your books or your tech. Cozy space for your treasures to protect. Built-in power when you need to recharge. Smart design that makes your bedroom feel large. Turn Easy Bed, spin your world around. Storage made simple, the best you found. Shelves your way, keep the mess away. Charge it, store it, night or day. liquidations. Proudly Canadian and patent pending in North America. Turn Easy Bed transforms how you live.
To learn more about this innovative new product idea, an exciting investment opportunity, call 519-784-0222 or visit brightleafinnovations.com.
We're back. Okay. Elon Musk, speaking of Saudi Arabia, at this conference, the Saudi Investment Symposium, predicting that robots, like the robots that his company continues to develop through Optimus, could solve the labor shortage problem, as he describes it, drive costs of production to near zero, and create a future where poverty is statistically irrelevant, saying robots could make work optional. I don't know. What do I think? I think this is going to have unintended consequences, and it will just change things. And I don't think it will result in the utopia that Elon Musk is predicting through his technocratic ideology.
But AI and humanoid robots will actually eliminate poverty. And Tesla won't be the only one that makes them. I think Tesla will pioneer this, but there will be many other companies that make humanoid robots. But there is only basically one way to make everyone wealthy, and that is AI and robotics.
And we can't talk about robotics without AI.
Don't know. It's going to be disruptive. It's also going to create a situation where everyone will need one. And where will you be if you can't afford to get one? If you can't get in on the ground floor of the artificial intelligence and robotics revolution, where are you going to end up? You're going to end up at the bottom of the pile. And while everybody else maybe is living some sort of utopia, I don't know. I just don't know. You might end up with a big nothing burger. Here's a look at his. Here's another look at Optimus robots. Russia trying to catch up too. We've remember I ran that one with the face plant. We'll run this. Oh my. I'm not running the audio because we'll get it with a copyright strike. Oh, yeah, relationships. It's already changing the way people live. Even human-to-human relationships are changing because of robots, because of AI. Where do people get their advice from? Who do you talk to? I'm even seeing websites, services, apps where you can now get yourself basically an AI companion, girlfriend, boyfriend, sex friend. It's definitely changing the world, but I'm not so sure it's for the better. People becoming more and more isolated and increasingly sucked into this matrix that we call the internet through our cell phones and maybe soon through Neuralink, which will be, not just interacting with your brain, but maybe controlling your brain, certainly distorting things, creating a new reality for anyone who gets jacked in. And distortion for some people comes even now, not so much through a digital reality, but a chemical reality. Strangely, I was surprised to see this interview done by Tucker Carlson involving Dr. Daniel Amen. He says marijuana is toxic, and he in this interview, accuses the marijuana industry of spending $3 billion a year on marketing. He says that we, the people, should be completely freaked out because he says it's a very damaging drug. And he says people are like saying that, marijuana is innocuous. Marijuana is innocuous. And he says, why are people saying that? And he says, marijuana is not. He says it's directly toxic to your brain. I don't use it. I don't advocate for it. I do see personally, I see what I believe is a downside of marijuana. And I was surprised to see Tucker Carlson entertaining this on his program.
So have you noticed, since you do treat children as well, an
let it roll.
increase in damaged brains that you can attribute to marijuana use?
Absolutely. An increase from when we started.
So that seems like a public health concern.
It's totally a public health concern. We should be completely freaked out. And people are like, marijuana is innocuous. Marijuana is innocuous. And it's like, why are you saying that?
Because
when
they're getting rich from it, probably.
Well, the marijuana industry, which hates me, spends $3 billion a year on marketing.
So how are they different from the Sacklers at Purdue Pharma then? Like lying to people about the health effects of the drug they're profiting from. I mean, it seems like the same.
It's a weapon of mass destruction.
Marijuana. And the weed industry hates you?
Of course.
Have they attacked you?
All the time.
Really? What do they say?
If I post something on one of my social media sites, they'll call me a charlatan and hysterical and that I should get high. And they should take my medical license and all sorts of things.
Take your medical license?
Yeah. Because they'll do anything to try to shut me up. But it's like, how do you not talk about the truth? And it's like, well, how do you know? It's like, well, I look at the brain. And if your brain is not right, well, you're not right.
Yeah. I just didn't know until we had breakfast a minute ago that kind of damage was or any kind of damage to the brain was more subtle damage, not, head injury damage, but damage from drugs, for example, was detectable on a brain scan.
Yeah, so interesting. So SPEC, the study we do, gives you this really beautiful 3D look at activity. And a healthy scan shows full, even, symmetrical activity, with most of the activity being in the cerebellum. So the cerebellum is the back bottom part of the brain. Cerebellum is Latin for little brain. And it's 10% of the brain's volume, but has 50% of the brain's neurons. And alcohol is directly toxic to the cerebellum. Well, so is marijuana. And that's why you shouldn't drive when you're high.
And so what happens in the cerebellum?
So many interesting things. It's sort of the Rodney Dangerfield part of the brain. It gets no respect.
This would be the lower brain we refer to, not the higher brain.
Well, it's so important because it's connected to the rest of the brain. And it used to be thought that the cerebellum was involved in coordination, physical coordination. Well, now we know it's also involved in thought coordination, how quickly you can integrate new information.
Okay. That's why I don't use it. I want my mind clear. I always want to be able to think clearly. I'm not excited about the idea of getting jacked into the matrix either. But again, this is, I think, coming in the very near future, where people will be given an option. You can get jacked in or not jacked in. If you get jacked in, now suddenly you have the power of AI connected directly to your brain. And that will make you much more competitive in the job market and in society. And if you don't do it, and you're simply an organic life form, not directly hooked in to the matrix and to the technocracy, then you're at a severe disadvantage. And who's going to want to hire you? Thinking too much like an individual. You know, the more people get jacked in, the more conformity you get and the less individuality. I think that's one of the major dangers that we face as a society moving forward in this regard. You kind of begin to lose your humanity, your individuality. And individuality largely is the answer to a lot of the problems facing us when we are dealing with tyrannical governments or governments involved in overreach or anything involving issues of freedom. Judge me as an individual, not as part of a group or collective. Judge me on what I do, not on what I look like, not on my religion, not on my creed, my skin color. Judge me on what I do. Maybe not even on just on what I think, but what I do, my actions. What am I responsible for? I don't want to get jacked in. Yet we are jacked in, inevitably, aren't we? Tonight, also dramatic escalation of hybrid warfare. Poland has ordered the immediate closure of its last remaining Russian consulate in Gdansk, labeling a recent railway sabotage as an unprecedented act of state terrorism orchestrated by Moscow. This is actually serious. It's not getting any play over here, but it gets us one step closer to a full scale, I would say, Third World War kinetic conflict. Foreign Minister Radoslaw Sikorski announced the move today following the arrest of 4 suspects linked to the attack on the vital Warsaw-Lublin rail corridor, a key supply line for Ukraine aid. Polish authorities say 2 Ukrainian nationals recruited by Russian intelligence crossed from Belarus to plant explosives near Lublin on Saturday before fleeing back across the border. Sikorsky says this crosses a dangerous line. The incident comes amid Russia's largest aerial barrage on Ukraine this month, with hundreds of drones and missiles slamming into western cities like Kharkiv and Ternopil overnight, killing at least 26 civilians, including children, and wounding dozens more. Spillover fears prompted NATO allies to scramble fighter jets over Poland and Romania, while Warsaw temporarily shuttered eastern airports to secure airspace. Ukraine's President Zelensky decried the strikes as proof that Moscow, in his words, will never stop on its own, urging global pressure for peace. But no headlines, even from the major U.S. networks on this tonight that I've seen, not like as top stories. Poland's top general has continued all of the concern, warning today that this kind of sabotage marks a pre-war phase, with Warsaw deploying 10,000 troops to guard infrastructure. This is an attack on a NATO country inside its sovereign territory. So as NATO convenes emergency talks regarding this, and we get only sort of a little bit of lip service paid to it through the media, both independent and mainstream, here in Canada and the U.S., the alliance reaffirms Article 5 solidarity. We'll continue to follow the story because it is a major development. Maybe the reason they don't want to talk about it is because they don't want you thinking about it and scrutinizing it too much as we move toward, like I say, maybe a full-blown Third World War. Back to the economy. I guess there's this, you still have time if you want to claim what CTV is describing as this CTV. Anyway, yeah. Your slice of the bread fixing settlement in Canada through Loblaws. Oops, did I just lose it? No, there it is. I don't know how much each individual will get as a result of this. The deadline to claim a slice of the $500 million class action lawsuit settlement over bread price fixing is quickly approaching. We've talked about this in the past. You have until December 12th to submit a claim for your share of that settlement after Loblaw Companies and its parent company, George Weston Limited, were accused of participating in a years-long and industry-wide scheme to fix the price of bread. Anyone who purchased packaged bread, that would be you, I, and everyone, including bagged bread, buns, rolls, bagels, English muffins, wraps, pita, and tortillas from the grocery giant between January 1st and December 31st of 2021 is eligible. Claims can be submitted online, and no proof of purchase is necessary. Those who submit a claim could receive $50 or more by e-transfer or check. You need to be 18 in order to qualify. Sounds like a contest, doesn't it? Here it is here. Let's, there it is. Canadian Packaged Bread Class Action Settlement. Powered by Verita. Canadian Packaged Bread Class Action Settlement. Notice of settlement approval. Submit a claim. Just click right there. Am I a real human? Cloudflare wants to know as I take you to the page. I'm real. I'm not jacked in yet. I'm still, it's for the moment anyway, I'm still human. So you can go there and get your $50. There, don't say I didn't give you anything for Christmas. Speaking of which, I've got something special lined up for you guys for Christmas. Oh, yes, I do. But it's a surprise. I'm not going to tell you right now. I'm also continuing to work on post-production on that War of the Worlds thing that we've been working on. So stay tuned for that as well. Oh, continuing our international update. Tensions boiling over still in the Caribbean as the United States continues to ramp up its military footprint near Venezuela in what analysts are calling gunboat diplomacy tonight aimed at ousting President Nicolas Maduro. I told you it's about regime change. Not that I'm a big fan of Maduro. He's a dictator to be sure, but is the president of peace really putting America first? Is the president of peace really supposed to be using these kind of tactics? Wouldn't it be more in line with what the American dream and the American ideal are supposed to be by collaborating, working with other nations in the region in order to effect change diplomatically? Under President Trump, the U.S. has launched Operation Southern Spear. Navy strikes on suspected drug boats off Venezuela's coast have now killed over 80 people. 80! Just blow them out of the water. They've deployed the USS Gerald R. Ford, aircraft carrier, warships, and 15,000 troops to the region. Washington is accusing Maduro of heading a narco-terrorist cartel, doubling the bounty on him to $50 million and labeling his regime illegitimate after disputed elections. Maduro crushed protests and coup attempts before, now pledges face-to-face talks with the U.S., urging dialogue, yes, war, no. Trump says he's sort of decided on next steps, but is open to discussions. Venezuela has allies, namely Russia, China, Iran, Cuba, and they have offered some rhetorical backing, and you've seen mercenaries, the Wagner Group from Russia, head off to Venezuela to offer some form of hired military defense, but it isn't clear how far that support from those allies, how far that support will go for Venezuela. Most experts are saying that we shouldn't really expect those countries to take their support of Venezuela and the Maduro government too far because they don't want to risk direct intervention or conflict with the United States. Let me take a quick break. Going to come back. I have more of today's top news stories on the other side.
Greetings, brave mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, Maverick News. Defending free speech, free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching. Maverick News. The world is watching.
So yesterday, with this long deep dive with Jason Lafacci of Alberta Radio into what was going on, has been going on out at the Ostrich farm in Edgewood, British Columbia. It was, I thought, a pretty good program. We certainly brought forth a lot of valid and even new information that I hope will help people put things into proper perspective. That being said, I needed to address a few things here tonight just to kind of update and be thorough and fair. Yesterday, I was told that Dave Belinsky, co-owner of the farm, was going to join us on the program, or probably would. And then as we went to air, I found out from Jason, who had been talking, he says, to Mr. Belinsky, that he had backed out of the interview and that it wasn't going to happen. So we proceeded with the broadcast anyway, because Jason had been doing research and there was much to discuss. So in the interest of being thorough today, I phoned the farm because last night's program also involved the distribution through this platform of information that Mr. Belinsky and Karen Esperson and Katie Pasitny and other players out at that facility in Edgewood may not agree with, or may have other information they would like to bring to bear on this. So I called the farm to make sure, first of all, that there was no confusion, to just confirm that they did in fact receive the invitation to appear on the program last night, in case there was some misunderstanding, and also to extend an ongoing open invitation to the farm to appear on the program to clarify any issues that they want to clarify, and hopefully to answer further questions, to provide even more clarity and transparency surrounding with regard to this story, which frankly I at times have found to be very weird. And I think there's been a lot of information that has been shared with the public, certainly by the farm, or at least activists at the farm and influencers from the farm, information that I think has confused people. Some of it I think has been outright lies. A lot of it. So wanted to make sure that they got an invitation from me personally to appear on the program so that I'm not just relying on someone else to try to bring them forward. I honestly have to say I was surprised when I heard that Dave Belinsky had agreed to appear on the program to answer questions and to bring more clarity to things. So I don't know really exactly what transpired, because when I phoned out to the farm today, no answer. I did try a few times and did so in a way that I can prove, because I recorded the attempt to phone. Also sent email messages today as well to try to contact the farm. Again, though, just explaining that there's an open invitation for them to come and join us on the program to help you, help me, help everyone understand what's going on. But this is clearly not an issue that is not over. You would think that with the culling of the birds finally this past week that this would be done, but it isn't. Not by a long shot. That's why Katie Pasitny, family spokesperson for the farm, has indicated that that farm, as far as she's concerned, now is ground zero for change in Canada. Not really clear what that means. We've seen the Canadian flag burned out there. We've seen statements made that they want to bring the Canadian Food Inspection Agency, the agency responsible for the cull that ultimately took place after nearly a year of lawfare being waged against the government, not the other way around this time. They really turned the tables on the government. So they've been waging lawfare for nearly a year, while at the same time saying that they haven't been getting due process, that it's all corrupt and it's all fixed and it's all rigged. Ultimately, their attempt to take this all the way to the Supreme Court, that when they finally got to that level, the legal test failed again. The case was not heard, their appeal. But they're not done. They still have the backing of this billionaire out of New York, John Catsimatidis, who tonight, I guess, still is offering, according to Katie Pasitny, a reward. Talking about lawfare, talking about taking it to the man. They, Katie Pasitny, farm, through John Catsimatidis, this rich grocery store chain owner from New York, WABC radio owner from New York, also oil baron, owner of a refinery on the U.S. side, largest purchaser of Alberta oil, the biggest. He's offering a $50,000 reward, so says Katie Pasitny, to anyone who can provide information that will result in a conviction leveled against the CFIA, the government agency responsible for the cull.
Would notice that our animals were spray painted, some were blue and spray painted, some were red. And we would like to know what those spray painter markers meant, because that was not done prior, that was done after. So I would like to also put out there that John Catsimatidis from New York has offered a $50,000 reward of information leading to prosecution. So if anybody has any information that leads to prosecution of Canadian Food Inspection Agency or some of their workers, there is a $50,000 reward from John Catsimatidis. Or has any information on this you would notice that our animals were spray painted, some were blue and spray painted, some were red. And we would like to know what those spray painter markers meant, because that was not done prior, That was done after. So I would like to also put out there that John Katsimadidis from New York has offered a $50,000 reward of information leading to prosecution.
Okay. So you have this rich billionaire guy directly tied to the Trump administration, a funder. He donates to MAGA, to Trump, to his political campaigns. He's strangely become involved in this Ostrich story, told Katie Pisitny and the farm owners, don't you worry out there. I will pay for your legal bills while they continue to fundraise. I don't know exactly how much they've raised now, but there are reports, as we told you on the program last night, that they've raised as much as, well over $400,000, maybe $500,000, maybe more. And Dave Belinsky, according to Jason Lafacci, indicating that he wasn't even aware of all the money that was being raised. I find that hard to believe, but that is one of the reasons that I was hoping Mr. Belinsky would have joined us on the program last night to clarify all of these things. A very, very strange story indeed. Now, I also have to just point out that last night, and Jason made this fairly clear, I think, but some people asking questions of me today and with regard to this. So I want to be thorough and just state again that the information that Jason Lafacci brought forward, he was bringing forward on his own behalf. What I showed, that was me. And sometimes Jason also made it clear that he was offering up his opinion on things, not necessarily just factual information, but he was analyzing what he had discovered or says that he found, and he then offered opinions on that, including an opinion that, in his opinion, one of the business people that the farm was involved with, Stu Greenberg, really maybe wasn't being entirely providing real true transparency on the level of involvement, I'll put it that way, with the farm and his company down in the United States, with the research that was done into antibodies, specifically at the time, COVID antibodies. I'm not sure that any research of any kind was ever done through the farm into bird flu. That's another thing I keep saying, show me the study to back up these claims that you've been making. Nothing. And no response from the farm today. So far, they have declined to comment and have declined to appear on the program again to answer questions. I will be fair. I'm not here to be vindictive or to attack. I just would like to have questions answered. And those questions were laid out in the program last night. I won't rehash it all here right now. If you want to find out what that was all about, go watch last night's program. We were on for 3 straight hours, and there was a lot of information shared. Or watch some of the previous work that I've done. Now, I don't agree with some of the speculative things that Jason was saying on the program last night, and I certainly am not going so far as to say that anything illegal was ever done out at the farm with regard to their business practices. But there's a lot of weird stuff that's gone on out there. And we know that, a lot of the practices that they were involved with just simply didn't follow rules. And they're paying a price for that because they've been charged. They are facing fines. They're going to have to now come up with money to cover the legal costs and other costs associated with the big protest that erupted out of all of this, rather than working with the Canadian Food Inspection Agency to cull those birds. And yeah, they didn't have to be shot in the way that they were shot. Had the farm owners worked with the CFIA from the very beginning, this whole thing could have been handled in a completely different manner. There might even have been a path forward for them to save those birds, but they don't talk about that. No, the birds died. And people cried because it's been a very emotional thing. In fact, people are more concerned about the birds than the people, even the protesters. I sometimes wonder if the people who organize these kinds of protests care about the people that they recruit to do their bidding on the front lines at all. We know that one person died out of the farm. Did you know that? Maybe. A lot of people didn't know about it for a while after he died. He had an abscess in a tooth, apparently, and something happened and it burst, and he didn't get proper medical care, and the next thing you know, he had passed away. So there was some acknowledgement of that out at the farm, but there were fewer tears shed for him, his name was Tom, than there were for the birds. There's still outrage over the birds. I want to bring your attention to Rudy Bruce, who's in the hospital. He's been on this program. He's sort of flip-flopped on the ostrich issue. In support of the farm, against the farm, then back in support of the farm, drove out to the farm. He's been advocating for the birds being saved. Didn't quite work. What's his motivation? I don't know. I do know this. The poor guy's in the hospital, not well. I understand that he, I do have a picture of him here. I understand that he is, here, I better do it this way. He has undergone some sort of an operation. And I don't want to share too much about his medical situation without his knowledge or consent. So I won't dig into the details that I have, partly because I want to be accurate, and also because I just want to respect Rudy's right to privacy. But he himself posted this picture on his Facebook page. Here he is in the hospital. There we go. Let's say hello to Rudy, shall we? Sorry, I'm clicking. So I found out about this. Make me feel bad. There's Rudy. Hello, Rudy Bruce. There he is in the hospital. So I phoned, didn't get him on the phone, but I did leave him well wishes, and I do wish him well. I hope you join me in that tonight as Rudy recovers. And I do wish him a speedy recovery. And I just thought you'd all want to know. Simple as that. Just take a quick look in the chat. Yeah, Dragon says, well wishes, brother. Yeah. And others tonight too, saying, get well soon, Rudy. We'll have you back on the program at some time, maybe. But you got some questions to answer. And I'll answer questions too. And bring you more of the day's top news stories tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Eastern. On the flip side.
Well, I heard old Cosmo howling last night up on the hill where the moon shines so bright. He was singing a tune, lonesome dogs cry about freedom, running and touching the sky. If I leave here tomorrow, would you still remember me? is turning gray. With Cosmos still out there, he's miles away. He's not looking back, he's got his path to tread. With every step, he's leaving his path. If I leave here tomorrow, would you still remember me? Cosmos free, running wild, wild as a wind can be. He's a free dog, he's a free dog, he's a free dog. So if you're feeling lost, just think of Cosmos Run. Remember his spirit, his freedom, his fun. And maybe one day, when you're feeling low, you'll find your own freedom and let your spirit go. If I leave here tomorrow, would you still remember me? Cosmos free, running wild, wild as a wind can be. He's a free dog, he's a free dog, he's a free dog. In his eyes, the wind in his fur, a tail that wags like it's never heard of a bird, a heart full of love and a spirit so free. He's living his life wild and carefree. He's got the stars in his eyes, the wind in his fur, a tail that wags like it's never heard a word. Cosmos on a journey, he's got no chains. He's running through fields, breaking all the lanes.
This has been a Maverick Multimedia production.